FOMO. Yeah. FOMO. If you check the Urban Dictionary of the so-called young people, you'll find that FOMO means a fear of missing out. Many bad decisions have been created by FOMO, maybe me included, but not the decision we're going to talk about today. That's because FOMO partly induced a decision we're going to ponder over. The great decision by Nissan not to miss out on fat American wallets. You see, much like the other Japanese manufacturers in the 80s, Nissan felt like they needed to trade up in terms of the kind of markets they were selling to and the kind of customers they had. That's because before the 80s it was all fun and games where their cars were initially entering other markets. The impression people got from Datsuns was, a car that doesn't break down a lot and is really fuel efficient. My coffers are saved. But with new opportunities came new problems. The problems arose when Nissan realized that their primary market was, kind of the penny pinching sort. You know, if you wanted a good deal, you got a Nissan, a Honda, or Toyota. Whereas if you wanted something with more luxury, something to be really proud of, you would have to get a German make or something quite boat-like, like a Cadillac. Not to mention, there was a nasty export restriction put in place by the Japanese government that made that it would have been more profitable to export more expensive cars rather than the usual cheap ones that they were exporting. The big three Japanese manufacturers saw the kind of perception that American public had about their cars. And they were like, nah. We can do what those Europeans are doing and what the Americans are doing. And we can do it better too. We're gonna have to trick them though. I know, we'll make some luxury cars, sell them under a different badge so that they think they're different luxury brands, even though it's just our cars underneath. Genius, isn't it? They'll never see it coming. Kind of like how we infiltrated their society with borderline sexualized cartoons. Great idea. And so began the creation of the not-so-holy trinity of Lexus, Acura, and the often forgotten Infiniti. Now of the three, Infiniti for a long time was the black sheep. In this video, we're going to look at why. So, the year is 1989. Some other sort of important stuff happens. But even more important, Nissan has decided to put some skin in the American market game with their new luxury brand, Infiniti. And just to let the good American people know that there's something big coming on the horizon, they literally inundated the public with some very nice pre-product ads. Now mind you, I'm not talking about some edgy ads with cool looking concept type cars which the public was supposed to believe were gonna actually look like the finished product. No. That was much too commonplace, much too simple. They decided to lure the public in with a bit of mystery. What they decided to do was launch an ad campaign about some very soothing shrubbery. Beautiful nature scenes were supposed to embody the principles and values of this new up-and-coming luxury brand. Now back then, it might have been one of the most unusual wastes of ad time. But you see, I like to think Infiniti was ahead of the curve. I mean, imagine that kind of advertising today, when everybody's forced to be green. I mean, the green parties would love that. I mean, think of how happy, look at the smile that Greta Thunberg would have on her face if she saw those kinds of ads. I mean, jeez, man. Anyone probably thought that, back then, probably thought these cars were going to be made of recycled tree bark or something like that. So, not a bright start. Then Infiniti finally decided to actually release their first cars for the American public's viewing pleasure. The genesis of Infiniti was the Q45, a high-end luxury sedan meant to go up against the likes of the Mercedes-Benz S-Class, the BMW 7 Series, and here it is. The audacity, really though. No. But from an engineering perspective, it was pretty good. It was no Lexus LS400, but That's a very high bar on the first try, even though the Lexus was also a first try. Oh boy. But it had some neat things like, a throbbing V8, four-wheel steering. But still, they kind of reached for the stars, trying to be an S-Class beat. They then tried to get into the mid-level luxury sedan market with the Infiniti J30, which was looking to beat the likes of the Acura Legend. And I mean, who was designing these things? Compared to its competitors, it looked like it needed pills to keep itself together every day. It looked so geriatric. Things didn't get off to what I would call a flying start. The 90s weren't all bad though. I mean, that time Infiniti did manage to achieve the correct rebadging of the kind of okay Nissan Primera and named it the Infiniti G20. Don't ask me about the naming scheme of their models because it just gets more confusing. Literally, they could just taking all the letters they want. I think they would give the LGBTQAI plus community a bit of a run for their money, but oh my god, so many letters. Anyway, mind you, their naming scheme was a bit better named than the likes of the Nissan Cedric, which was wow. The early years of Infiniti, not really anything to write home about them. Very much overwhelmingly average. Very clearly outdone by their competitors. They did get one thing right though. They put analog clocks in the center console, which is aristocratic, kind of like a Bentley or Rolls Royce, so thumbs up for that. Suffice it to say, these guys had to get their act together though. They had to do it quick as well because the walls were closing due to the price bubble of Japanese assets. It was with that they decided, why make cars for petty, decadent bourgeoisie social climbers when we could just try making cars for hooligan bourgeoisie social climbers? I mean, and that's exactly what they did, refocusing their energies on more sporty than luxury. It was then that we truly experienced Infiniti's grand entrance into the world of real cars. Infiniti made a splash in 2003 with their G35, a car loved now by many enthusiasts from tuners to, racers. But of course it would have been a hit because it was based on the ever popular Nissan Z cars in Japan, so it had to be a hit. There's not much more to say other than it won Motor Trend Car of the Year in 2003. That's not bad considering it was compared to the BMW 3 Series. People loved the design and the quasi-luxury manner of the car with the power of a juicy V6. It was a real sports car and put Infiniti on the map. Things were finally looking up. To celebrate the great success that was the G35, they had to have a party. At least I think they had a party, because it must have been at this party that a Japanese executive railed coke off a stripper's ass and then had the brilliant idea to take the platform used by the G35, raise it, and turn it into an SUV on steroids. They called it the FX SUV, and you had one with a big boy V8 and over 300 horsepower. Sporty SUVs weren't really even a thing back then. Not really. The X5 had only just been released. People loved the FX SUVs because of the quick acceleration and the cornering, which wasn't shabby at all for a G35 on stilts. And this was made in 2002. Infiniti had cracked the secret recipe of real sports SUVs. And with that figured out, it was all the way up from there. Infiniti wasn't mucking about anymore. Oh no. They were the Japanese BMW now. Under the future fugitive Carlos Ghosn, there was a restructuring at Nissan that allowed Infiniti to do a bit more branching out. In 2007, the G37 became successor to the G35. Infiniti also invaded Europe with the G37, the new line of SUVs. In 2010, the M series finally became the true luxury sports sedan. It it was always meant to become. And if all that wasn't enough, Infiniti became a major sponsor for Renault's engines that powered Red Bull Racing's Formula One cars. Yes, that Red Bull Racing. Suffice it to say, there was a huge Infiniti logo on some championship-winning Formula One cars. And honestly, it doesn't get any bigger than that in the world of speed. Anyway, I'm going to leave it here for now. Anyway guys, this has been Private School Tav. Make sure to subscribe for more. I'll check you out the next time.